All right. Hello, and thank you for joining me here today. I'm Christina with Ask a Montessorian, and today we are going to look at my theory notes. One of the reasons that Montessori is so successful is because Maria Montessori not only created the materials, but she also created the method. And the method involves observations and record keeping and a trained teacher. And in the training, the teacher is responsible for understanding the theory behind child development. And so a lot of schools will present parent education nights based around theory, and a lot of training centers will encourage you to read lots of books that delve deep into the subjects that are, how do I explain it? Like the subjects that get into the theory. Like, why would you choose Montessori over traditional school? Why does the child need to work with materials? Why do you have to have a 3-hour work cycle? Why do you have to have a 4-year age gap? So 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds in one room age span. Why do you have to do observations? Why do you have to pay attention to the children? And this is basically an observation, but watch for what it is that they need. They don't, it's just, I have noticed that in public school, the really experienced teachers tend to do observations without realizing it. And I do know that they do have student teachings, but I've never, maybe you guys can help me out. If you're a trained teacher and you've gone to school to get some sort of state certification, share with me what it is that they encourage you to do in the classroom in order to determine where the child is at. I know there's a lot of testing. And in Montessori, you don't need to do testing because the teacher's doing the observations. But I am curious as to whether or not the teachers are encouraged to do observations in a traditional public school classroom. Like, if you're taking the state certification required classes for elementary education, do they talk about doing observations? Do they talk about paying attention to the child and assessing where they're at? Maybe, I don't know, because there's social development, there's emotional development. There's so many different factors, although if they're sitting and writing on a piece of paper and then they give you the piece of paper and you use the piece of paper to evaluate them, I imagine not so much. So the difference is that in Montessori, you are giving lessons, small group lessons to anywhere from between, it depends on how normalized the classroom is. I've seen teachers with experience give lessons to as many as 10 children at a time because all of the children are listening, all of the children respect the teacher and want to learn from the teacher, so they're all paying attention, they're all excited about the lesson, they're all excited to go and do the work after the lesson. And so anywhere from, it could be 2, depends on the, what type of lesson it is and where the children are in the classroom. So people say, oh, Montessori is chaotic. If you have a teacher who is trained, then that classroom will only be chaotic for a short time while the teacher is getting their footing, if you will. So the classroom becomes normalized as the teacher becomes more experienced. And it's not chaotic because we have our albums, and our albums have specific lessons that are done in a specific order and in a specific way. And if the teacher is giving anywhere from, when they first start out, it can be as little as 5, but when they're more experienced, you want as many as 12 to 15 lessons a day to the children, the classroom will normalize and you'll see a lot of structure because the children will be working, quietly, usually, concentrating, lots of concentration going on. And in public school, they don't have that system. So, anyhow, without further ado, let's look at my theory. I was just sharing with my mom this really fascinating lecture that, let me see if I can find it. My trainer shared with us, because it goes over, let's see here, is this it? Yeah, the preparation of the teacher. So I'm excited to share with you everything that's involved when you're preparing a teacher for entering into a Montessori classroom, like teaching in a Montessori classroom, because it's a big deal. Let's see. Oh, that's a different one. Okay, hold on a second. There we go. Yep. Okay, I just sent it all to her, so I'm going to double check here. Jean Miller. Okay. Elementary. I'm not sure where I went. Oh, here. Hold on. 2. Here we go. Is this it? No, that's not it. Okay. Well, that's okay. We're going to go into my applications and my Finder, and then we'll look at it from there. Oh, I have a theory album. A theory folder. So, if we go to desktop, bear with me, it's here. And then, yes, there we go. Okay, biology, geography, geometry, history, language, mathematics, music, songs, theory. Okay, so I'm excited to go over this one with you. Where'd it go? Here we go. Guiding a Montessori elementary community. So a lot of my friends Montessori is still not that well known, unfortunately. It's growing. We have the Montessori, I think it's called the Montessori Policy for Public Initiative, something like that. And they are a group of people that have created communities within each of the states, and they work to bring Montessori to the public schools in that state. It's pretty cool. So, let's look at this. The first thing we're going to talk about is recognizing a Montessori elementary environment. A Montessori elementary environment is a place where the children are invested and vigilant. They're physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually being, being cared for in those respects. The teacher is mindful of their needs when it comes to physical, social, emotional, and intellectual needs. It's a very orderly classroom. You'll notice that when you walk into a Montessori classroom, the materials are on the shelves. They're in a very organized manner. There's a system at play, like you'll see the science materials in the science area, the mathematics materials in that area. There'll be a beautiful area for art. There'll be a section for music with some musical instruments and the tone bars. If you're in a well-equipped classroom, there's going to be an area with science, and I said that already, but one of my favorite lessons that you'll find in science is the classification work, which is plant classification and animal classification, and it's stepping like a stepping block for the 6 and 7-year-olds to begin to do research, and they create great work from it because they start out with something as simple as a frog, and then they look at the species of frogs, they look at the habitat where the frog lives, they look at the type of food that the frog eats, they look at the reproduction characteristics of the frog, they look at, like, if there's a particular this is kind of silly, but let's say that one of the frogs has a particular kind of mating croak. All animals have a mating sound, and so the children would look something like this up, and they create a project. A lot of them I've seen use the project boards. It's a large board that has sides that flap. And remember when we were in school and we did science projects for the science fair? So you'd use a project board, and it would have it's kind of like a thick material, and it has foam on the inside and then the paper on the outside, and you would create your presentation with that, and the children would find pictures that they would print off on the computer, and then they would write their research based on the pictures and put this on here. And that's an advanced example of great work that you would find when they're doing classification. And there's a limited amount of materials that they can choose from to kind of springboard off of that, and then start creating their own materials and start doing their own research. That's why when they come and ask us a question when we're directing the classroom, we only give them a little bit of information, but give them the opportunity to think for themselves and to choose the direction they want to go in. So Greg is always saying, Mom, blah, 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 Mom, this. And so I'll Google it for him, and then I'll say, oh, look, there's a video. Oh, look, there's a little bit of this. And then I'll kind of leave it alone a little bit, right? Because I'm impulsive, I have ADD, and I tend to talk a lot. So I'll have to pull myself back from, my instincts are to tell him everything, right? And a lot of parents are, because you think you're helping your child by doing that, but you're not. You want to give them just a little taste of information, and then they'll get excited about it, and they'll take it in the direction that they want to go in. Whereas if you're telling them where to go, it's based on you and what you want to learn about it, not about what they want to learn about it, if that makes sense. You have to follow the child and give them the opportunity to choose what it is that they'd like to work on. So in a Montessori elementary environment, it's an orderly place, it's a friendly place, it's a positive and supportive place, it's a place that supports each child's learning style, because you'll find that they are varied, lots of different learning styles going on. It's a happy place. We honor birthdays, and we recognize different events throughout the year, and we talk to the children about their families and about what's going on in their lives at home, and we honor different things. Like, for instance, when I was teaching in the primary classroom, we had a family that was of Jewish heritage, and so we talked about Rosh Hashanah, and we talked about some of the other, I'm trying to remember, there's one that starts with an SH. Forgive me, it's been a minute since I've been in the classroom. But Ramadan, I think that was it. But we talked about some of the Jewish holidays, and we had a family who's from India, so we talked about Diwali, and we customized the education to the child. So then you'll find that an elementary classroom is also a dynamic and exciting place, because the children are learning and they're looking forward to their lessons, and they're excited to return to their work every day. They're endlessly challenging, fascinating. They're endlessly being challenged. They're fascinated by everything, and they're interested. Their lights are on. It's a place with high expectations, demanding the best from everyone, but we do it in a very gentle, non-critical way. where the child's light is still glowing. So for instance, if they bring you a piece of paper and they say, "Hi, I'm doing this research and I was hoping you might be able to help me edit it," you're not going to take a red pen and mark all over it, right? And I know they do that in some, I went to Catholic school and they did that to me. So, and then you look at it and you're like, wow, maybe I should not try writing a paper again because obviously I'm a failure, because you see all the red ink and yeah. Anyhow, in Montessori, what we do is we give lessons on editing, and then I encourage children to work together with a partner, and then they would edit each other's papers. So not only are they learning to correct their mistakes, they're learning how to become editors. And it's so cute, and they love doing it, and they're very supportive of each other. Okay, so the children are self-directed, autonomous learners, which you won't see in the traditional public school classroom or even a traditional private school classroom, because in order to be autonomous, they need the lessons and the materials. You will notice that in some schools, for instance, we have a very successful private school here called Primavera, and at Primavera the children use workbooks. And when I was substituting there, we didn't have a Montessori school here, and my dad came down with Parkinson's disease. My parents were living here in Prescott, and so I took a break from teaching for a while, and I substituted, and throughout the public schools and in private schools. And so as I was substituting at Primavera, I learned that the children work at their own pace with workbooks. But in Montessori, it's much more successful and self-directed, because the child not only has the ability to work at his or her own pace, he or she also has the ability to excel. So the materials they're not designed for just one lesson and one experience. They're designed so that the child can do extensions and they can continue to challenge themselves again and again, and they'll observe this from other children in the classroom who have worked with the materials, and more often than not, the teacher does not even have to give the child a lesson. They'll observe an older child doing it, and then they'll go and do it themselves. Very autonomous. Concentrating. You'll see lots of concentration in a Montessori classroom. The children will be work-oriented, and they're experiencing the joy of learning. So they love work. The children are responsible. I've seen some really successful classrooms implement. This is a successful approach that I've seen implemented in some very successful Montessori classrooms where the children are all doing very well. They have a government system. So they elect officials, they have hearings, they have judges, they have a mayor, and they create like a town, and they vote on things, they propose amendments, they make propositions, they elect people, and I mean, some of them I've seen have been very small and simple, like, oh, if somebody, steals somebody's pencil, we take it to court and we talk about it. Some of them I've seen have been very detailed, and they've had, the town council and, the judge and the court system, and it's really remarkable when it's done well. And the children, you give them a tiny bit of information, and the children will study government and civics and then design their own version of what they want their classroom to look like, and they'll vote on it and construct it by themselves, and it's autonomous. And they're learning responsibility. They're being respectful of each other. We have grace and courtesy. So in the primary classroom, the children are learning to say please and thank you and excuse me, and making way for someone to pass, and how to carry a tray, and basically showing respect in a variety of different ways. You'll find that the children are moral and ethical. and that's part of the human tendencies. Children have a tendency to want to understand right from wrong once they reach the second plane of development, which is between 6 and 12 years old. As the 6 or 7-year-old starts to enter the elementary classroom, as they're developing, in their life, they're questioning what's right, what's wrong, and they're going to come to the teacher and say, Susie stole Rebecca's muffin, and I watched her do it, and Susie didn't see her do it, but I watched her do it. So you're going to have a lot of tattling with the 6 to 9-year-olds. 9 to 12-year-olds not so much, because they begin to think, oh wait, it hurts my feelings when somebody tattles on me, which is a very abstract concept for a child, the golden rule. And so they'll stop tattling and they'll start advocating, and they'll start like, for instance, we would encourage them to ring the bell and say, I just wanted to point out that Rebecca, for instance, would ring the bell and say, I just wanted to point out that I had a muffin on the table and I can't seem to find it now. If you have my muffin, could you please put it in my cubby later on today? Or if you're hungry and you need a muffin, please let me know and I will find you one. And it's all this really organic and remarkable community that takes care of themselves. And they look out for each other. And when you educate a child in a Montessori classroom and bring them into the world, more often than not, they make some very impactful changes. The Google Boys were Montessori children. Julia Childs was a Montessori child. Taylor Swift was a Montessori child. The gentleman, forgive me, his name escapes me, the gentleman who designed Windows was a Montessori child. The children will be socially adept. They're going to be confident enough to go and say, hi, may I please have this? Or that makes me feel uncomfortable. Or, I'd rather go here instead of there. They're going to advocate for themselves. They're going to be pretty skilled at advocating for themselves and asking for what they need, voicing what they need. The confidence. You'll see the confidence in a Montessori classroom when you observe. It's beautiful to watch. So now let's get into the adult. The adult is the guide, or the director, or the directress, which is the teacher in the Montessori classroom. The guide is expected to be enthusiastic, alive, and full of wonder. So the guide's going to be like, oh, you caught a butterfly and you brought it into our classroom. I wonder what species this is. You're excited, you're tuned in and turned on. You're fully present and you're always involved with the children. You're responsive when they need you. You're consistent. Your temperament and your behavior are consistent. You're flexible, you're peaceful, you're humble. You're observant, you're curious, you're respectful, you're orderly, you're patient, you're trustful, and you're trusted. You have a sense of humor. You must develop this sense of humor. People say, oh, I don't have a sense of humor. Well, that's because you are not developing it. It is something that can grow within you. The ability to laugh at one's mistakes and in the face of adversity is very valuable, and the children will learn that, and then they will do that when they become adults, which helps them feel better about themselves and their accomplishments. There should be laughter in the classroom every single day. All right, so we're already at 25 minutes. We talked about the adult, the children, and what the environment is like. I'm going to go ahead and end this video for today since it's getting a little lengthy. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and please feel free to ask me any questions that you might have about a Montessori classroom. I have my 3 to 6 and my 6 to 12 training and experience with 18 months all the way through 15 years. So I would be more than happy to answer your questions, and please feel free to comment. And like Greg always reminds me, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe so you're kept apprised of any future videos that we make. And yeah, this is, oh, just FYI, this is the lecture on guiding an elementary Montessori community. It's the first 4 pieces of recognizing a Montessori elementary environment, and this is part of the elementary training within the Association of Montessori International. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I hope you all have a remarkable day and enjoy your children.